Hello, everybody. This is Matt Sumstein from Hawaii. This is a summary of a February 3rd meeting we had with all of the Hawaii coaches and officials and the Oregon coaches and officials, and we were discussing the NFHS flag rules. Some of the conversation has to do specifically with Hawaii and painting fields and the type of and the size of field that we're going to use, but there's a lot of good NFHS content here. I did create two videos that I loaded on YouTube prior to this one being loaded, and I recommend you watch both of those play videos before watching this because this does refer to some of the plays in those first two videos. But other than that, hopefully this is helpful and you enjoy it, and please let me know if you have any questions.
There's illegal contact in the form of a block or a charge. There's accidental contact, which doesn't buy you out of the foul, as was the example in that last play. And then there's incidental contact, which is not a foul.
Is the DB allowed to press to create contact? Is that allowed anywhere?
Well, if you're pressing to create, then you're the person who's responsible for the contact. And if the contact is anything but incidental, then it's going to be on the person who created the contact.
Okay. No, that's very clear. Thank you.
Regarding in the backfield with the backs or slots, as they are running out on a route. So you showed an example of the Koku team where the running back stepped up and then spun out of the way. If that running back was to continue on her path forward instead of spinning out of the way, who has the right of way? The rusher, the person rushing in, the running back or receiver in the backfield that's trying to run a route? Who has the right of way? The receiver, the offense, or the defense?
I would say that in a 99% of the time, and of course there's always an exception to everything, that if you're in the backfield, particularly what is considered the tackle box, if you have a back moving forward, the defender has the right of way. So if you truly want to be on a pass route, then just get out of that area. If you're a blocker, you stay in that area. You can screen, you can back up, you can do what you want. But in order for us to identify a route, you need to be outside of that area or be on the line. The defender's got a straight line right to whoever's got the ball. So if you've got people in the backfield, and I know we can massage this as much as we want to, and we can create a bunch of what ifs. But if you're in, and I apologize for using the term tackle box in a sport we don't have a tackle box, but we all have an idea of what that range is. And if you're within that range, then you're considered a blocker until you're clearly identified as on a route. So if the defender's coming in and a person in the backfield in the vicinity of the quarterback is advancing forward, then they have to avoid that defender or stop and then get into a clear screen posture. But if they run up to that defender so close that the defender can't avoid that contact, then it's going to be on the offense. So if in the interpretation of the referee, you're there with either the intent to block or to disguise yourself as a blocker, then you're going to be considered a blocker, and it's going to be on that person who is in that position to avoid that contact, that straight line contact with the incoming rusher. Unless they're stationary. If they establish a stationary position, then now we're not talking about a receiver, right? Then you can hold your position. If the rusher hits you, then it's on the rusher. How are you?
Can you define what straight line is? Is straight line north to south, or is straight line at an angle? Is straight line down the line of scrimmage, or is it north and south of the field?
Direction to the ball carrier.
Understood. I'm just making sure.
The main thing is, though, in order to have a foul, we have to have contact. If we have contact that falls into anything but incidental, then it's going to be the referee's judgment as to whether it's a block or a charge. And we're using more basketball terminology relative to that, but that seems to work.
If I could jump in on that, going back to the basketball example. So in basketball, whoever has position first has the right to that position. So they're stationary. But if two people are running, who has the right of way? So if a defender is running up, an offensive player is running to get position, if they run into each other, who's at fault? So in the situation with the center releasing out to the flat, and you have a defender coming in, they're both moving to get to a spot, and the defender's going to a straight line to the quarterback. The center can't see where the quarterback is initially, because if the quarterback rolls behind her another direction, she can't see her. And then if they make contact, who's at fault?
Let me start by saying this sounds to me like very close line play. Center's charging off the ball, defender is within a yard of that center, and they both take a step and run into each other. That's nothing, because we can't place blame on either one. But if we can place blame on one or the other, then it will be on who has that primary position. So anywhere else on the field, there's time for players to avoid each other. But just like that last play I showed, who's at fault on the accidental hit? Well, because that center was downfield on a pass route and the ball was behind the line of scrimmage and not really close to that receiver, it's on the defender. It was an accident, but that's who it's on. But if you're talking about a center and a defender that at the snap both take a step and bump into each other, there's no fault there. That falls into incidental, even though it's forceful, just like the forceful contact in the end zone when everybody's trying to go for the ball. We'll take them one at a time. But what I will say to any coaches involved or who are concerned about things, there's video that I've posted. I know many of you have not seen it yet, but I'll provide you with the links and the links to every video that I post throughout the year. And you'll start to see some clarity with regards to these things. If you send me video, particularly in the preseason, you say, hey, who's at fault here? I'll tell you who's at fault, or whether it's incidental. And then we can all get a feel for it. But I can also tell you this. We're all human. Players drop footballs, coaches make good calls, coaches make bad calls, and the same goes for officials. So nothing is going to be perfect. That's the one thing I can guarantee you, is that nothing's going to be perfect. Some things will be great, some things won't be great. But we're going to work through this thing together, and that's why we're here. And one of the things that I'm trying to do with this type of meeting, and many of the other videos that I put out, is to try to work together and not make things adversarial. And we know that adversarial events happen. We've had a catastrophe here this year, and we're trying to work together to prevent some of that stuff. So let's just try to work together. We'll learn together. We'll grow together. We'll interpret together. And I think before we reach the season, we'll all have a pretty good idea of what we're talking about. But without looking at video specifically, it's very difficult to interpret what everybody else is thinking when it can't all be the same when we're just talking about it. Let's move into the rule book. So that's the cover of our rule book. As most of you know, the HHSAA tournament has elected to use the same field that we used last year. A couple of differences: that we're going to start the game on the 14-yard line versus the 20, which will give you the opportunity to make an easier first down on the opening drive. Going for 1 or going for 2 is 3 and 10 yards. That's no change. If there is a safety, then we'll put it on the opponent's 30-yard line. So we won't be punting out of that unless there's a change to the rule book. We'll just put it on the 30-yard line. So anybody who's marking fields, hopefully we've got a clear 30-yard line mark, or a line that would be the 30-yard line, and that's the field we're using. The Natalie effect has hit us all in Hawaii. So as part of our pregame activities, we're going to ask our athletic directors or whomever is responsible for coordinating things on any given game night to be part of the pregame. You know, go over some safety protocols, give us the ingress, egress, situational things that we can do to make sure that we're safe, make sure that our parking is safe. And if we have a situation that happens in a game that we feel may be threatening, then we're going to go ahead and pause the game until we can get that corrected. And we're asking that the athletic directors or their representative be involved in that process. And in this situation, this picture doesn't really say anything, but even people, photographers here that are in an unsafe position for the referee, for the players, for themselves, these situations, we need to get these much more cleaned up during the game. So we're going to address some of those things before the game. We're going to ask whomever the representative of the site is to be involved in those conversations, just like we talk to the coaches and the players. This is the game ball that we're going to use in the States. This is a much better ball than we used last year. It's got a narrower circumference. It's got a better grip to it. The rules are that we need to use a youth football, and it also states tan colored this year. So no more white footballs, no more black footballs, no more pink footballs. Just tan colored footballs that say youth on them. And it's not required this year, but next year the NFHS stamp is going to be required to be on them from the manufacturer. And because the range is 10 to 13, when we get to the States, we'll start all footballs at 10 pounds unless we have some different request. The 10 pounds makes it a little easier to grip because that's within the 10 to 13 range. The down box indicator and the timing device, that means the game clock and the equipment we use to signify the down, that's provided by the site. Uniforms need to be tucked in. This is a good example of dark and a light number, so that part of it's fine, but we need to have the uniforms tucked in. This is not permissible to have hoodies. And just so we know, the uniform requirements for NFHS are like tackle. And I know these are cool with all the bear claws on them and the labels in the front, but we're going to have to adhere to what the NFHS says for uniforms starting in 27. If you still have your uniforms from last year, you ordered something different this year's fine. You can use what you got. We just want to make sure that the visitors are in white or very light and that the home teams are in dark. And then the rule book has very specific requirements for uniforms. But this is an example of the tackle book. If you have a dark uniform, clearly contrasting light number. If you have a light uniform, clearly contrasting dark number. And all of these are considered illegal. And I know that you can see the numbers here, but because this is a black and this is a darker form of red, the border doesn't matter. They're dark on dark. This is light on light. This is dark on dark. And the faded dark to light interferes with the dark on dark here. So we just want to make sure we have a clean base color and a contrasting number color next year. This year, I know we are wavering for some uniforms we've already purchased. The mouthpieces this year cannot have these dingleberries on them. Anything that extends that's not protective, anything that has nothing to do with protection, anything dangling, or the baby mouthpiece kind of thing here, pacifier, all that stuff has to go. As far as face paint goes, there's no rule against face paint. Don't have any issues with that. But if you use eye black, you can't have any writing on it. And eye black is the black directly under the eyes. This is examples of legal mouthpieces. And you guys can go back to putting your school names or your logos or some design that you think is attractive for your school. You can put those on your mouthpiece, including these funny looking teeth. But if you do wear a legal mouthpiece, you have to wear it properly. And this, not like this. This is the snap, and this is not properly worn. So we want to make sure we encourage people to wear their mouthpiece properly. One of the legal varieties. The contrasting flag. We do need contrasting flags. So this white short with a flag pattern on the side is pretty deceptive as far as what you're going to grab as a defender. So the rule is a solid colored short, pant, or skirt, and a contrasting color flag that is a minimum of 14 inches long and 1.5 inches wide. So I know that you're using some of your equipment that you used from last year, but in order to make things competitively equal, we do need those dimensions to be accurate. So minimum 14 inches long, minimum 1.5 inches wide, and contrast the short. Next year, we're going to go to a 3-flag belt, but this year we're using 2 flags. So if you already bought your 3-flag belt, you can leave your tailbone flag out. This is auxiliary equipment. These arm sleeves that are designed to potentially enhance contact with the ball. There is no restriction on them for this year, But next year, this symbol is required to be on them and visible. So this year you can wear your arm sleeves with your alligator skin or whatever that's called on there. The headgear is allowed, but it's not required. And the other thing is, and this is really for the officials because sometimes they get a little bit picky about these things, hard items in the hair are okay if it's beads, barrettes, bobby pins, or something that securely fastens, your hair down, as long as it doesn't provide a safety risk. Gloves are okay, but they do need the stamp if you want to wear them, and that's the NFHS stamp. Play cards are okay if they're worn on the wrist, but nothing can be worn on the belt. And your pants can't have pockets, belt loops. You can't have slippery substances, uniform adornments, any hard substance on your body that on your arm or your forearm. If you have a knee brace, then manufacturer covering is fine, but we don't want it altered or have hard things on the outside. Shin guards that don't have the NFHS logo on it. Shoulder pads aren't allowed. But I put this picture in here because we got a phone here. This is okay to use on the sideline, but we can't have any audio or video devices worn by players. So if they want to put it on the plate, the secret camera in their helmet, that's going to be illegal equipment. They're going to have an unsportsmanlike against them, and they're going to be removed for a play. If they get 2 of those, then they got to go. So all that video and audio stuff that's coming out, and it's real small and it's real portable, none of that can be on an active player. And other than a medical alert or a religious medal that's taped down to be safe, jewelry is not permitted. So that includes anything visible. If it's an earring, a nose ring, an eyebrow ring, anything visible is going to send your player out for a play until it can be corrected. We're encouraging the conferences to be at the sideline. A conference means when you have a timeout. Because what happens is if you have a timeout and you say you want to go out to the hashes, that's only the head coach and 3 attendants. And sometimes that gets a little wiry because then you have 3 assistant coaches with water bottles out there, and now you have 4 coaches on the field. So if you want to have a less problem as far as us identifying things like that, when you have a timeout, just bring everybody over to the sideline, and then you can have as many people over there as you want. I think there was some questions about formations, but the only formation requirement on a regular scrimmage down is that you have a center and you have a quarterback no closer than, change this year, 2 yards from the center. So everybody else can be everywhere they want as long as they're not into the ball. So here's a couple of images. Do I need to make that larger? Are we okay? Couple of images. I drew some lines. So this last year we allowed some flexibility down here with the foot in the ball. This is not permitted this year. So either both feet have to be behind the ball on a sideways snap, or get into a snap position like this. But nobody can be in the ball this year other than the snapper's hands or head that don't extend beyond the front of the ball. And then, of course, like we said, all of last year, defense has to be clearly greater than a yard away. So this is fine. This is not fine. This is an immediate stop for us, and we stop play. In this case, though, also, we got 1, 2, at least 3 players in the ball. So all these players need to be out of the ball. All right. We're changing our play clock from a 40-second start at the end of the play to a 25-second when the referee signals. I anticipate that in most cases that will reduce that 40 to 35. Because if you have an efficient ball movement, typically you get the ball down in 8 or 9 seconds. And once the ball's down, the referee chops. 25 plus 10 is 35. So I expect this will probably reduce the amount of time between plays, or at least the maximum amount of time between plays. 12 minutes, 1 minute break. The 1 minute break between periods is just that. The referee holds up the ball, period's over. They go down, run the ball down, put the ball down. That usually takes 30 or 40 seconds. You get to 45, 50 seconds. They blow the whistle to warn you to get back in. Hopefully you get back in and you can snap the ball when you get to 60 or 65 seconds. Harold and I were talking about halftime length, and this is something that we can massage. I was talking to Chris about it earlier. Last year we went with a flat 5. I said, well, let's add a warm-up period just in case somebody needs to run to the restroom and come back. So we said, okay, 5 and 3. But this is subject to change before the season starts for the OIA. This may go as high as 10 minutes. So we'll get that out to you as soon as we can. All right. We talked about the 14-yard line and the 30-yard line already. The 2-minute timeout or the 2-minute warning, depending on how you like to refer to that, that is a clock status change timeout. That is not a 1-minute timeout. So if a play ends at 2:03 and it clicks down to 2 and we stop at 2, then we'll let everybody know, hey, we're now in 2-minute timing. The clock will start on the snap after this warning. But it's not a team timeout. So please don't call your teams over on the 2-minute stop. Game clock. This is also a substantial change. This will make our games a little longer. The game clock will stop and not start until the snap following a change of possession. Either team's awarded a new series after a kick or a score or a touchback. So we did a lot of running the clock last year, but this is much more standardized to the tackle game for these types of events. And once we get to the 2-minute timeout, it'll also stop if a runner goes out of bounds, other than a forward fumble out of bounds, which we wind back up. Illegal or illegal forward pass is incomplete, then it will stay stopped. So those don't stop outside of the 2 minutes, but they do stop once we hit the 2 minutes, and that's 2 minutes in the second and fourth period. Just a reminder that if you're out for injury or missing equipment, meaning removed by an official for that purpose, you can't come back. A timeout doesn't buy you back unless halftime occurs or overtime occurs, and then you can bring them back for that next event. Substitutions. This is another change because this is in the NFHS rulebook and requires a state adoption to change. So all snaps now will be from the center of the field. Zone to gains, nothing has changed there. This is a change. Last year we had to be a minimum of 4 yards behind the center to receive a snap. That included quarterbacks and punters. This year that's been reduced to 2 yards. So you can be a minimum of 2 yards away or as many yards as you like. There is no 7-second pass clock anymore. So as much as you want to run back there, as long as you have, if the defense decides not to rush, you can spend all day back there if you want. No 7-second clock on the quarterback. There is a clock on the punter though, and that was reduced to 5 seconds. This is kind of an unusual punt rule. It says there's no team B rush prior to the punt, which means you can't enter that 1-yard bell. It's encroachment if team B enters that prior to the punt. It's also the offense can't move prior to the punt. So we're just going to have to work on our special teams. Just have the offense stick wherever they are until the ball's kicked, and the defense can't step forward into that zone until the ball's kicked. If either of those events happen, and this is a very awkward enforcement, but this is how it's written, we need to stop play and enforce whichever penalty that is, and then we reset up. To me, it should be live ball. We'll look at that next year, but it didn't pass as a live ball this year, so it's still going to be dead ball if either of those are violated prior to the kick.
And Matt, Team A is K and Team B is R?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, Team A stands for offense, Team K stands for kicker. To me, they're interchangeable, but since we're declaring punt, it would be a K player is probably more appropriate. We talked about the snapper not having their feet in the ball, and any act to make the offense false start is a disconcerting foul. And it's a 5-yarder against the defense. And I think I have an example of that on one of my videos, but I haven't produced that yet. Any act by the offense intended to make the defense encroach, such as a hard count and jerking your hands forward, or an unnatural move to a shift to draw the defense off, those are considered false starts, and those go against the offense. This is new. We did not have intentional grounding last year. We do have intentional grounding this year. I only put this graphic in because the definition in NFHS of a pass beyond the line of scrimmage, if you see the down box here, as long as both feet are behind that line, then it's legal. So it doesn't matter if the hand or the helmet or the torso is beyond the line. What matters is one or both feet. If either one of the feet are beyond when the ball is released, then that creates an illegal forward pass. That's also true of tackle. Points haven't changed. This is just a mechanics reminder. This is a PAT from the 10. If we're on the 10, it's important that we have end line and goal line coverage. So we have our head down judge manage both these lines, and our line judge will go camp on the goal line, and our back judge goes to the end line. So at least we have proper score coverage, because nothing matters between here and the 10. What matters is the goal line or the end line. This is also an interesting enforcement policy that's in the book. It says when a try is replayed, Team A may choose to move to the other try spot, meaning, am I going to go for 1 or am I going to go for 2? So any penalties previously enforced on the try will be enforced from the new spot. And this is a very rare situation, but what that means is, let's say the offense is going for 1 and the defense encroaches. So the offense says, well, I want to go for 2. So they move the ball up. And then the offense false starts. Wherever the offense next puts the ball in play, we're going to enforce both of those penalties in sequence. It's kind of like multiple dead ball fouls. So it's just a way that you can't get out of a foul on a try down because you've had multiple fouls and multiple attempts at the try. So it's weird, but we'll figure out how to track that. A screen blocker may move to maintain legal position by moving in the same or nearly parallel direction with the opponent without initiating contact. So the definition is one thing. How we all piece that together into whether it's block or charge or center coming off the line or what, well, like I said, we'll work through that. And all right, and I know that, this is kind of golden area, but anytime the center gets their hand on the ball, this area needs to be clear, and that's the restricted area. You guys all know what that is, and it doesn't matter if you're behind the ball or in forward of the ball. We've had some collisions, and we want to avoid those, so that's going to be much more strictly enforced this year. Now, another example, sitting right here in the restricted area. Even though we're going this way, and I think ironically on this play it was an interception, we still need this lane if things come back, or if the quarterback rolls over here into the sideline. So also administratively, we've already talked about photographers. These guys need to get out of the way. Anytime we get outside, this is the 20-yard line, so 10 yard. They're sitting at the 5-yard line over here with their cameras. These guys got to get out of the way. So if we need to stop play for that, we'll tell them, but we expect administration from the school sites to help us make sure that we have a safe environment to work. All right, intentional grounding I already talked about. I made a list for you guys. You guys will all get this document. I'll post it somewhere. Automatic first downs. This is the list right here. That includes a third and subsequent restricted area violation, which starts with a warning, then goes to 5, then goes to 10, and so on. Fouls that do not include an automatic first down, which we were inconsistent with last year, are illegal blocks, including charging or contact blocking or holding. So those are not first downs. Pass interference is not a first down unless it's otherwise considered to rise to the level of a personal foul. If there's no change of possession, fouls will be enforced from the previous spot if the foul occurs behind the line of scrimmage. So the exceptions to that, if there's roughing the passer and the pass is complete, then it will be enforced from the end of the run if it's beyond the line of scrimmage. There's also some very specific fouls by either team that are enforced behind the line of scrimmage: illegal batting or kicking, illegal forward pass, which includes grounding, or any foul by the offense that is committed in their own end zone. That particular foul results in a safety. We do have a point advantage rule. This is the same rule we had last year, 21 points in the second half. We'll go to only stop for scores, penalties, injuries, and timeouts. I don't think the overtime applies to our regular season, but if we get into the OIA playoffs or the state tournament, the overtime rules are here. Like I said, you'll get a copy. The only change to this is that if B gains possession, there won't be any returns. We're just making that consistent with the try. Unless that rule gets changed, then we'll do that consistently on both. And that's it. Now, I do want to share this with you. This is where I'm putting my edited training videos for anybody's consumption. So if you go to youtube.com and then you put in /@AlohahClinic/playlist and you go to 2026 training videos, that's where the video I showed today will be. All right, from a content standpoint, we are question and answers only at this moment. So if we have any more, please let them out.
Ricky from Oregon. Are any fumbles on scrimmage plays still dead balls?
Well, if they hit the ground, yes.
Oh, gotcha. Right on. Just checking, Matt. Thank you.
Can you speak the sideline markings instead of cones?
Well, my understanding is that Hayata said that we had to have lines. So you're going to need to work with your ADs to create proper lines. When we had the state tournament, and I know that there were good intentions on this, but somebody brought out lawn spikes and put down some tape, and I pulled it all up, so we can't have lawn spikes on a football field. So they're going to need to figure out some way to put a non-caustic material down, or a paint that fades after 3 weeks. But according to Hayata, we have to have proper lines.
Hi, Matt. I have 2 questions. One, calling from the Big Island.
Yeah.
One, our coaches asked about the flag because they want designer flags on their belts. Are they allowed to have it, or just it has to be bold?
Well, there's a grandfather on flags that you have in use or flags that you've already purchased. There's no grandfather on the side because on the size, because last year the size requirements I think were 1.5 by 15, and this year it's 1.5 by 14. So everybody should be able to comply with the size standard. The designer standard starting next year for sure, solid colored short pant or skirt with a solid colored contrasting flag. This year, whatever you have that is contrasting, we've grandfathered through until 27.
Okay. And then the second thing is for the field. On the Big Island, for my school, I have field turf. So I use field paint, and it comes right off by the end of the season. So we've been using that, and that works really well. Our officials probably can attest to how the marking is, because they can see it and they like it better than cones, because cones often move. But Rust-Oleum field paint on field turf does disappear. And by the time football season came around, we couldn't even see it at all. So just a heads up, something you might be willing to use.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one of the things that I guess people have to consider that are responsible for lining is we don't want to, you don't want to mess up your whole field with tons and tons of lines, right? You don't want to put in a solid restricted area in the middle of your football field that you're using for other sports. So I would just say be cognizant that there needs to be a standard. So if the sideline is 9 yards in from the tackle football sideline, then figure some kind of method of keeping the teams and the transitioning players and any of the photographers, just keeping them back. And maybe the actual sideline is that for photographers, but something needs to be done because the clarity of that fades because there's no true lines for stay back line, I guess you would call it. But thank you for that. All right, Rebecca.
All right. I think I'm good. Thank you so much, Matt. Oregon folks, we'll have some more stuff coming out soon. Obviously, reach out to me for more of that. Matt's going to share this with me so I can share it out to you. I will get your commissioners, your attendance, and stuff like that. So send me any questions you may have.
All right, if we're good, we're going to call it a night. If we have any more questions, please let us know. If there's questions that you have for me here locally that you didn't want to bring up here in public, feel free to get a hold of me anytime.
And that's it for this one, folks. I want to thank everybody who participated, the coaches, the officials, the Oregon coordinator, Rebecca. So everybody contributed to this and helping everybody to grow together and hopefully to have a great flag football season. Let me know if I can do anything for you. And for now, over and out.